Right, so hello everyone, and welcome to the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast. This is going to be a little bit different than usual because we've got an actual friend. We have made the one friend. There is one person out there that
Have you asked his permission to see whether or not
yeah,
he's happy with us calling him a friend?
that actually wants to come on and be interrogated by us. And for those that are fans and part of the No Holds Barred Witchcraft secret Facebook group, you will probably notice Paul, because he is one of the rare people that likes to get involved and actually show a little bit about what he's doing instead of keeping it all secret, because all you witches want to keep everything secret all the time, don't you? You don't share any of your crap. Now, Paul is one of those people that does like to help other people and share a little bit of knowledge. And what we were kind of impressed by is something that we don't see a lot of, and that's putting the actual craft back into witchcraft. So it's not just the standard operational witchcraft, you know, your standard puppet, standard this. You've kind of developed a bit of an artist's kind of signature. It is actual art as opposed to just something to focus on that you see a lot with spells. So do you see your work as art, or do you just see it as just something that you do? How did that kind of come about, your signature style of doing things?
Broad, and hello everybody. Broad question. Yes, the simple answer is yes, and that's because I really saw Wicca more as recipe and traditional witchcraft as being a chef. So I could have been a cook or I could have been a chef. And so I think what a signature difference between the two are you follow somebody else's creativity, someone else's passion, someone else's intuition, someone else's aesthetic. When in traditional witchcraft, you harvest from your local province, you harvest from your heart, you harvest from your own creativity and intellect, and you come up with something that's very creative. The signature aesthetic, to put it a bit in a banal way, is designed to look witchy.
Yeah.
I mean, and that really impresses clients. I mean, they really
Oh yeah, definitely
get into that, you know. And but then take it beyond the banal. It also increases just the sense of gravitas of the operation. Yeah. So it's not just for them; it's also for you. In my mind, do you need it? No. But is it all part of the operation and the show? Yeah, I think so.
Your work is beautiful.
Well, thank you. And
beautiful. Like there is no other word to describe it. It is
art. Yeah.
Thank you. Each one's kind of, you know, I have a closet full of supplies, but each time it's kind of fun. I feel like I'm going grocery shopping because depending upon what I want, I'm picking different things. And then I'm always on the lookout for new stuff. I feel like a hoarder a little bit on that score.
All witches are hoarders, let's face it.
But, you know, we were in the mountains recently and I found a little desiccated turtle shell. Well, you know, I'm taking that home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whereas your average person might say, oh, that was lovely, don't touch it.
No, real witches, it goes in the bag.
Mm-hmm. And that's what happened.
So when you get someone that asks for some spell work or something like that, how much of it is the spell building itself versus I've got something in my mind that I just have to get out and perfect? Because a lot of the time when I see something in my mind, it'll be I need to make this and I need to get this out of my mind. Whereas other spells and things just tend to build and I don't really see where they're going until it's kind of complete. So is that do you have one kind of way of working in that sense, or is it, you know, because again a lot of it is art like you said as well, so is do you have a clear picture in your mind
of what it's going to look like?
No, great question. Never thought. You always ask questions that people don't think about, I think. But okay.
Okay. If you say so.
I think you do. That's really good. No, I have a very seed idea. It's like an
Okay.
acorn in my head. That's it. Which, if it's for me, then of course I know what I want. If it's for some client or family or friend, it's, well, what do you want? What's your end game here? And we tend to have a bit of an in-depth discussion on the end game, because specificity, I think, is the key to not screwing it all up.
Yeah.
Magic works a bit like a genie. So, I mean, you have to be real specific.
You've got to be watching out for those loopholes that the genie's going to actually, find a new way. I normally describe it as a path of least resistance. So if there is an easier way that spell could happen, you've got to have considered that, because if there's an easier way for magic to flow, it will flow within that direction.
Absolutely. I also think in terms of redundancy, I forgot which author or authors talked about redundancy, but the value of redundancy, sort of like you would have, you have an emergency brake on your car.
Yeah.
Same thing. Not just choosing one thing for one thing and then another thing for another thing, but duplicating things.
Yeah.
But to your question, Liam, I really start with an acorn idea, and then I tend to meditate on it for a bit, and little ideas pop into my head. I sometimes even dream about it, I guess, and then I see things. I keep my eye out for things that are novel in the yard or on hikes or something like that, and then I build it from there.
So does it vary when it comes to the spell work versus ritual work? So obviously you hold rituals and things like that for other people and other people that get involved, where it's a little bit different, because obviously it's the atmosphere that everyone, that to a certain extent, unless you know the people extremely well, it's that extra, force that's interfering with the stuff that you're doing when you're working in ritual versus the controlled kind of confines of spell work. Even if you've got a client or even more than one client, at least then you've kind of got more of a hold on the situation, I suppose. But having those extra people interacting, do you take any different approaches when it comes to the ritual stuff? Is it quite loose, or is it, because we've never been obviously with your rituals, so we're trying to get an idea.
Yes, we are known, and by we I mean my husband and I, and he goes along with this happily. But he when we first were dating, he identified as atheist, and then he became agnostic, and now he's often says things like, "Hey, can you do something for me?" which is code for make some kind of craft. So we're kind of known for having fetes or soirees or just parties that are usually anchored in something magical, which is odd for Oklahoma, which is in the center of the United States. We are in the Bible Belt. It's not as bad as you think. I mean, America is far more purple than red or blue. That's quite a distortion to think of us as I'm in a red state technically, but I'm actually in a purple state.
Yeah.
All that to say, we have lots of friends who come over and they delight in participating in witchcraft. Now, what I don't do is the more sophisticated stuff, more involved. For example, they're not going to be up for any chanting. I don't think. I may be projecting. But I keep things very simple. It's like, okay, tonight's activity will be thus and so. So tonight we're all going to make corn dollies together, and and here are the art supplies. And then we're going to do a simple ritual to spank your corn dolly awake and meditate on its abundant springing. That's how I keep it. Where for my own personal stuff and for clients, what I'm doing and asking is far more nuanced.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, because obviously people can kind of go in and out is really when it comes to how much they really want to admit to themselves that they're getting involved. I suppose with something like that, if you're keeping it simple, people can walk away with that simple concept and kind of pull it apart and have a real think about it. Whereas I know some people that we know people that hold rituals, so they just make everything extremely complex and elaborate, and people tend to miss the basic concepts of that. And I mean, we've seen bits and pieces from the pictures and stuff like that. We haven't done any astral spying on you, obviously, but
Not yet.
it does seem to be one of those ones which there's a lot of thought that goes into, I think, the experience for the people that are involved with it. And there's you know, a lot of rituals and stuff that you see being done publicly, a little bit that you've touched on already, is kind of, oh, well, you've just chucked that out of a book and just copied it. And, you know, that's the artist involved, isn't it? The artist getting involved with making it your own.
By druids.
Yeah, I don't really see a lot of that, unfortunately, in a lot of witchcraft.
That detaches me emotionally and metaphysically from anything too complicated. It detaches me. I feel like an automaton after a point, and yeah. I don't feel like that's powerful. Part of this idea of simplicity came from my undergrad. I studied anthropology, and I don't know what you in the UK use for undergrad, but it's after 12 years of schooling, you go to it's college.
So what's that, sixth form?
Yeah, it's a sixth form. It's kind of where we would do A levels. Yeah.
Okay. So my major was anthropology. My minor was psychology, and we still had to do a thesis for undergrad. And my thesis was in the shamanistic folk magic practices of the American Southwest.
Oh, wow. And
I studied, because I lived in the Southwest of the United States, I studied the folk shamans of the Southwest. So I would go out there in the middle of nowhere, because that's where they are, and I would take a translator with me, and just watch them and ask them questions. And then, of course, I'm a participatory anthropologist. I wasn't going to academically observe. So I would say, all right, I want a healing. Okay, I want a reading. And then they started to trust me, and they would say, well, let me show you how to do it. Well, my point is, their rituals were highly simplistic. I think they would have found the Wicca style stuff or the ceremonial magic stuff to be white guy, white person level. They would have thought, what is that? If you want to purify someone, see that juniper tree branch over there? Cut a branch, light it, smoke them. That's how they kind of, and the chanting was largely Roman Catholic, Hail Mary, Our Fathers, and so it was very syncretic, but it was still simple. And I've tried to borrow that. I've tried to mirror that in my work. Keep it simple. I think that's more powerful.
Yeah, I think there's a beauty in simplicity, and I think that's what throws people when they come and mentee with us, is the fact that we don't have these elaborate ways of doing things. It is just kind of like, when I teach, something as simple as charm bags, it's, well, what have you got around the house? Like, find me something cloth of that person's body, that person's whatever it is. Now go for a walk. Pick up anything that screams to you during that walk.
Stealing the underwear of your ex, that's your cup of tea.
Yeah.
It's not
the sort of stuff I do.
You're always getting them to steal socks and pants.
Making poppets out of people's underwear. Yeah, it's exactly what I get people to do.
And the weirder the better. The weirder item, the better.
Well, I think it's just the more skid marks, the better, in there, Chris.
Hey, you're the one that likes the biologicals. I'm not so keen on
biologicals. I do like the biologicals.
I much more prefer the cleanness of energy work. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I still remember one curandera, and if it's a woman, it's a curandera. If it's a man, it's a curendero. Keep in mind, a brujo or a bruja; those are witches. By that they mean black witch. So you go to a brujo or a bruja to kick someone's ass. That's what you do. And they do they kick butt up to and including death. it's the curandera and the curenderos who do more healing. And if you have a problem with someone, they're gonna mostly strengthen you than do much to them.
Yeah.
That's how they're gonna do it. But where was I headed with that? Something very simple was they would take a chicken egg, and they'd roll it over you, and they would take all the negative energy out of you into the egg. Then they'd crack the egg into a glass, and they'd read the egg and give you a diagnosis. That's pretty simple. And you're at first you go out to these places and you're thinking this is going to be very ceremonial, very complex, and she pulls an egg from the chicken coop. Yeah. And I just fell in love with that. I was just enchanted, to use a pun. I was absolutely enchanted by their form of folk magic.
Well, it's raw and it's not wasteful. I think that's what bugs me so much about modern is, I must have this and I must have that. And I'll have 3 of those just in case. Like, I don't have anything planned, but just in case. And they collect like magpies, just everything and anything.
Yeah.
And then never actually get around to doing any magic at all, is what I find.
Right.
It tends to be more the fact of, I've got all this cool stuff. Look at my altar, it's so cool. And then next minute you're kind of like, okay, well, what was the last spell you cast? Or don't do any spell casting. And you're just kind of like, really?
Right. And I think the actual passionate participation goes way down when they're just preoccupied with implements and ceremony, and so you're not present. And so that's why I don't overplan things. I start off with an idea like, okay, and as you gentlemen know, I use lots of sympathetic magic, or otherwise known as representative magic. I use lots of that, so I know something's going to represent something in some way. All right, I plan that.
Yeah.
Or contagious magic. I know that I've got something from somebody that has a contagion. Well, fine.
Yeah.
But that, I really get into it in the moment. The only thing that's probably ritualized is the prep work in terms of a circle, if necessary, just some kind of preemptive creation of a sacred space. Okay.
Yeah.
That's probably a little more rote. But I don't invent that every time.
We all have our ways of working that way, and I think that's where they annoy me, the W words, on the basis of they don't understand that that's what they're doing. If they'll do a circle every time because to do, and you're just kind of like, that's fine. If you're creating something for someone else, then you're going to create ritual space. If you need to go somewhere in order to take more, or open a portal to somewhere else, then you're going to take precautions. Like, the idea, I think I like the more organic way.
You've talked a little bit about, obviously, black witchcraft, white witchcraft, healing, that kind of thing. Now let's talk about your personal ethics, because that's always fun. What extremes do you go to? Is there anything that you would say to someone, no, I'm not happy to do that for you? How do you, what are your limits? What are your hard limits?
Philosophically, I look at the whole metaphysical world. Let's use that old English word weird, the weird, W-Y-R-D. I look at the weird as no different than the world we live in now, which is nuanced with good and bad, up and down, black and white, cruelty, kindness. So I don't buy that I don't buy the airy-fairy idea that the spirit world is just a bunch of unicorns and ponies and rainbows and everyone's happy and nice to each other.
Of course they are. What would we do without the unicorn?
and
don't forget the dolphins.
Yeah.
It's all about dolphins now.
Right. And that's probably one of the things that annoyed me about some of the made for TV witchcraft was it was generally like that, except I would think the American show Charmed, you know, I'll give them credit. They did seem to be struggling with the dark side of the spirit world a lot. But so organically, metaphysically, I do believe it's all game. You know, I'm all in. Now, I'd have to take it on a case-by-case basis because I don't know my emotional reaction to this. You might ask me to do something and I emotionally might have a reaction or a blockage to it, depending on what you're wanting. One of the authors I enjoy, he's very dense, but I enjoy him, is Robin Artisan. Now, sometimes his work is very, very involved and much less organic than I like to do. But he talks about not karma, but that the weird is all like a web. So when you tweak a strand on the spider web, no matter what it is, you're vibrating too, because you're on the web. So he just basically says, be careful how you're tweaking things. So if you're trying to cause death to someone on the web, do keep in mind that's quite a tweak of the spider web strand. So if you're a little spider here and they're a little spider there, I don't know if this metaphor is working at all, but it makes sense. Okay, and you do something pretty butt kicking towards the spider over here. You've now really tweaked that spider web on the weird, and so you're going to bounce too. You can't define how you're going to bounce. Now, this isn't at all the threefold thing that the Wiccans talk about. I don't believe there's any puppeteer going, look at you, naughty you, I'm going to bring it back to you threefold. It's just physics.
Cause and effect.
Yeah, it's cause and effect.
If you jump up and down on a trampoline, everyone else is going to jump up and down as well, and one of them's going to fall off at some point, probably, if they're near the edge.
Oh yeah, I like your trampoline metaphor better. That was good. I like that.
So have you ever pushed someone off the trampoline then?
No, I did. There was one particular one last year where this person, these were my best friends, and this person was really hurting them. And so what I did a little bit, I cheated a little bit, is I said, I'll help you do it.
Oh, we do that. We use that one.
Yeah. Because they wanted some serious stuff. So I said, look, okay, it's going to be your cause and effect. I mean, I'll help you, so I obviously can't say I'm not participating. But you guys are going to have to. I'll show you the ritual. You do it, and so it's your trampoline.
Yeah, we use that card a lot.
I'll just swap trampolines once this is going on. Yeah. No, that's one of those things I think that you either have to decide clearly what you're willing to share and teach and help with, or you've kind of got to say, look, anything over this, I'll give you the knowledge, but I'm not necessarily going to do it myself. That's the cop-out that we use all the time.
Good. I feel validated.
Yeah, if somebody's going to take that kind of approach, then they've got to, pay whatever price is necessary for that approach. I don't want necessarily the work, but I'm happy to facilitate. Like I say, our golden rule is always that we won't affect people for more than one lifetime.
In a negative way.
In a negative way. It just starts
but
to
it
get
doesn't matter this
messy.
Lifetime.
Yeah.
For a lifetime, but not till.
I like that. I may borrow that. I'll give you guys credit though.
Oh, you don't need to give us credit.
So, yeah.
Well, here we go.
Go on.
I've got one for you. Now, I don't know if you've noticed what's been going on in the Facebook group today, but someone posed a question regarding, essentially, they wanted to have someone else do a quote-unquote black magic spell. Now, I did ask what it was involved or what they wanted, and they said they wanted to make their ex fall back in love with them. So if you had someone that approached you with that request, how would you deal with that? Talk us through your thought process.
All right. I'm a little bit biased here because I'm a psychotherapist in my career. So I'm a clinician. So in my day job, I do psychotherapy and I run a mental health trauma clinic. Okay. So my first thought as a psychotherapist is, what the hell is going on here? I mean, this happens where they ask me for stuff and I'm thinking, oh, you've got some work to do. So I start, I would actually, and this has happened in all kinds of, in readings and whatnot, because you guys know I read the tarot. I'll ask people psychological questions. So my fundamental question would be, so you want a kind of magicalized zombie?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking? You want magic to come along and zombify your ex, which is how I see it, make him fall in love with you. Where's the authenticity in that?
The authenticity, I just want the Saturday morning cuddles.
Right. Right. And so then I'm just like, well, then get a doll, get a sex doll. I mean, I'm being rather crass here, but I guess my conversation would start.
I don't think our answer was much better, to be honest. But
I think that gives us a window into your practice, because there will be people that will just say, I'll give you what you want, you can deal with the consequences. And then there's people, like it sounds like the approach that you take, which is, okay, so what really does this person want that they may be aware of or unaware of, and what's really going to help the person? And caring a little bit more about the client than just giving them what they want. Because I think for a lot of practitioners, when they get people that ask them to help them, people ask practitioners like us to help them with magic and stuff, we kind of have to think a lot of the time, you probably don't actually want that, and there's something deeper at play. Obviously, if you're trained to deal with the psyche, that helps, but it is nice that some people, such as yourself, actually put some insight into that, think about that, and won't just give everyone what they want.
Well, I like to take their request to its limit.
Yeah.
And say, so what you're asking for is what we see on Disney movies.
Yeah.
Where a witch in the village enchants the prince to fall in love with this person, and it's a counterfeit love, and then someone disenchants the enchantment, and then everyone wakes up. So I would also say to this person, is your end game a lifetime of enchanted love? Because if someone can fall in love with you, as this person might have in the first place, they fell out of love with you. So love is an ebb and flow kind of thing. So is what you're asking for like full tilt Nelly, 100% total love till death do we part? Is that what you're asking for? Because you're really asking for a Disney spell. You're wanting this person to be under an enchantment. How does that feel good? I get the cuddles.
Well, the person said what they wanted. I think is the flawed way of thinking that you basically said. What they want is they want to force someone to love them so that they realize that actually I did love you all along. So it's kind of like the lover's snare spell, which turns out that, oh, well, I did love you all along. It just took this little bit of influence, this magical nudge. But obviously it was never going to work out, let's be fair. Which is why this person got torn to pieces in the group. But there we go.
Yeah. And sometimes I think I end up going compromise, or what I like to call middle path. And I'll say, all right, what's middle path? Let's make you more charismatic. Let's do that. And then he or she may pay attention, or somebody else may pay attention. Because quite frankly, think about all the relationships you've been in. Sometimes you don't leave a relationship until someone else comes along and they yank you out. This is how the planet turns around, right? Few are the people in my line of work, few are the people who leave a relationship and take that healthy break and then go on to the next one.
Well, that's it for the regular podcast, but we'll carry on for Patreon.